I never thought 5 words could end 12 years of marriage. Not shouting, not slammed doors, just 5 words, said so calmly I almost missed how final they were. My name is Claire, and I want to tell you exactly what happened that night, because even now, months later, I still hear his voice in my head, steady and quiet, like he had been waiting years to say it. Mark and I got married when we were 26. He was an engineer, steady and reliable, the kind of man who checked the locks twice before bed and never raised his voice, not even when I gave him every reason to. I worked in marketing, and somewhere along the way, I started measuring our worth in numbers. My promotions, my bonuses, my name on the office door. Mark's salary stayed modest, dependable, unremarkable. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself love wasn't about money. But somewhere in the last few years, a small, ugly voice had started creeping into my head, and that night, I let it speak out loud. We were hosting dinner for 6 of my colleagues from the agency, the kind of people who talked about stock options and signing bonuses like they were talking about the weather. Mark was quiet most of the night, refilling wine glasses, laughing at the right moments, the same way he always did at these things. I remember feeling proud of him and embarrassed by him at the same time, which is a strange, shameful thing to admit. Then Priya, one of the account directors, asked him what he did for work. He told her simply that he was a structural engineer for the city. She nodded politely and asked how that compared to marketing salaries these days. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was 12 years of quietly resenting a life I had convinced myself I chose freely. I laughed, a little too loudly, and said that Mark made in a year what I made in 4 months, and that someone in this marriage had to be the real breadwinner. The table went silent for half a second, before a few uncomfortable laughs filled the gap. I remember Priya's eyes flicking toward Mark, waiting for him to laugh along, to make a joke about it, the way men are supposed to when their wives embarrass them in front of company. Mark didn't laugh. He set his wine glass down on the table slowly, like he was setting down something much heavier than glass. He looked at me, not with anger, not with hurt exactly, but with something colder and steadier than either. Then he said 5 words, quiet enough that the table had to lean in to hear them. He said, "I built the city, Claire." That was it. 4 seconds of silence stretched into what felt like an hour. Our guests didn't know where to look. Someone cleared their throat. Mark stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and told them he hoped they'd forgive him for cutting the evening short. But he needed some air. He walked out the front door in his socks and didn't come back that night. I want to tell you I understood immediately what those 5 words meant. But the truth is, it took me days to unravel it. I built the city wasn't about bridges or budgets. It was about every quiet sacrifice I had never noticed. The nights he stayed late on inspections so families could trust the buildings their children slept in. The raises he turned down because the smaller firm let him actually build things instead of managing spreadsheets. The years he let me believe my ambition was the only kind that mattered in our house, while he built something that would outlast both of us, one beam and one signature at a time. He hadn't needed applause for it. He had just needed me not to laugh at it in front of strangers. He came back 3 days later, calm as ever, and told me he wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. He said he'd spent 12 years being proud of me in rooms where no one clapped for him, and he simply couldn't spend a 13th year in a marriage where his own wife did the opposite. He wasn't cruel about it. He packed methodically, the way he did everything, checked twice that he had his passport and his late father's watch, and told me he hoped I'd find someone whose paycheck matched my definition of respect. I begged him to stay that first week. I told him I would take it back, that it was one careless sentence at one careless dinner, but Mark had never been a man who said things carelessly, and he told me that was exactly the problem. He said some sentences aren't a slip, they're a leak, showing you what's been building pressure underneath for years. He wasn't leaving because of one dinner. He was leaving because that dinner had finally shown him the truth he'd been quietly absorbing for over a decade. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. He was fair about everything, generous even, which somehow stung more than if he'd fought me for every dollar. I still live in the house we bought together. I pass the new municipal bridge downtown sometimes, the one with his firm's name on the plaque, and I think about those 5 words every single time. I built the city, Claire. Not I love you, not I forgive you. Just a quiet, devastating truth delivered once and never repeated. If there's anything I've learned from losing a marriage over 5 words, it's this. Respect isn't loud, and it isn't measured in salaries. It's in the small moments when you have a choice to lift someone up or cut them down in front of a room, and you choose wrong without even realizing what you're choosing. I chose wrong once at my own dinner table, and it cost me 12 years in the time it takes to set down a wine glass.